I was recently looking up the 2025 NBA free agency class, and I was just going back in time at some of the bigger free agency classes we have seen. And I did a video in the offseason grading the 2023 free agency class a year later. I want to grade the 2022 free agency class today because this class is really interesting to look back on. And we're going to grade most of the big contracts that happened. We're pretty much just going to grade the initial contract that was given out. A bunch of these players ended up getting traded shortly after they signed these contracts because maybe the teams that signed them had some regret on giving them these large deals. And like always, you can let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my grades down below, and let's get into it. So I want to start off by talking about the deal that probably came with the most skepticism at the time. The Knicks gave Jalen Brunson of the Dallas Mavericks a 4-year deal worth $104 million, $26 million per year. A lot of people, including me, thought the Knicks were kind of crazy to give him this type of contract, and they traded away draft picks to free up cap space to give their max slot to Jalen Brunson that free agency class, and it is obviously going to be an A+. This is one of the best free agency signings in terms of making a risky move and it paying off. Because yeah, if you gave LeBron James or Kevin Durant a max contract in free agency, that's a no-brainer. That's going to be an easy A+. But a lot of people thought that this could have ended up being an F for the Knicks. It ended up being an A+. And we are in year 3 of this 4-year contract, and Jalen Brunson has averaged 26 points, 6.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds. He shot 48% from the field, 41% from 3 over those 2.5 years with the Knicks. He's got 1 All-Star appearance, 1 All-NBA second team appearance, and has brought the New York Knicks to the second round in 2023 when they lost to the Miami Heat, and in 2024 when they lost to the Indiana Pacers. And he has shown that he is the best Knick, at least since Carmelo Anthony and maybe since Patrick Ewing in the 90s. And I truly think this is one of the best free agency signings of the 21st century, just because it was not a no-brainer, and the Knicks had to make a calculated decision, and it's definitely paid off. Because Brunson was maybe a top 100 guy in Dallas, and he's turned into arguably a top 15 guy in the NBA. And last year, he was a top 10, top 5 guy as well in the NBA because he finished 5th in MVP voting, and he's continuing that this year as he's averaging 25 points and 7.7 assists, a career high for the Knicks, and leading them to being an elite offense this season. This is going to be the last year of that contract initially, and then he has a player option that he declined next year, and then kicks in that new extension. So I just gave that deal an A+. We're going to go to the different end of the grading scale. We're going to give Bradley Beal signing the super max extension with the Washington Wizards a D. One of the greatest players in Washington Wizards history got a 5-year deal worth $251 million that also included a no trade clause. The Washington Wizards decided to give Bradley Beal a smaller extension in 2019 just to set up this eventual supermax, and they gave that to him in this offseason. They obviously traded him a year into this contract, so now it's the Phoenix Suns' negative asset right now. In 2023 for the Wizards, the only year he spent in DC on this extension, he played in 50 games, averaged 23 points, shot 50% from the field, and 36% from 3. The Wizards obviously didn't make the playoffs. They drafted Bilal Coulibaly in the 2023 draft, and they traded Bradley Beal to Phoenix that offseason. So what makes it not an F is they were able to trade him and get something in return. I don't know if Jordan Poole is a great asset, but they got some pick swaps down the line, and Phoenix was willing to trade for the Bradley Beal contract, and now it's showing right now that he is still a good third option in this league, but he's also being paid like a top 5 guy in this league, and he's a third option at 31 years old. So I'm going to give it a D. You can let me know in the comments if it should be an F. DeAndre Ayton signed a 4-year deal worth $133 million with the Phoenix Suns in that 2022 offseason. I don't know if you remember this though. The Indiana Pacers actually gave him 4 years, the same amount of money, and Phoenix matched his contract. I'm not really sure where Indy would be right now. Would they have traded Miles Turner? Would they have tried to roll out Miles Turner and DeAndre Ayton at the same time? But Phoenix, they had to match it, and they did that. And obviously DeAndre Ayton was traded in the 2023 offseason. The same offseason the Suns traded for Bradley Beal. They sent DeAndre Ayton to Portland for another player that signed a contract extension this offseason that we'll get to in a little bit. But for Ayton, I'm going to give this a C letter grade. Ayton, in his only year in Phoenix on this contract, averaged 18 points, 10 rebounds. He shot 58% from the field throughout 67 games. The 2023 Phoenix Suns ended up losing in round number 2 of the 2023 playoffs to the eventual champions, the Denver Nuggets. And then they obviously traded DeAndre Ayton to Portland in that 2023 offseason. I think I'm just giving it a C. Like, it's not the worst contract in the world. Is DeAndre Ayton overpaid? Yes, but is he still giving you solid production on this deal? Yes. It's not like he's a complete negative asset. It's not like he's turned into a Ben Simmons level player. He's still somebody that can give you a double-double in almost every game. He just probably shouldn't get paid like a top 10 center in the NBA. So like DeAndre Ayton, another player from that 2018 2018 draft class signed an extension this offseason. It was going to be Anthony Simons of the Portland Trailblazers, and he signed a 4-year deal worth $100 million with Portland. I'm going to give this a B-. It is crazy to say that $25 million per year in today's NBA really isn't that much money. Do I think Anthony Simons has lived up to this contract? I think you could say yes and you could say no. Simons, in his first year of this deal with Portland, averaged 21 points, 4 assists, and shot 44% from the field and 37% from 3. That was Damian Lillard's last year in Portland. And last year, after Damian Lillard got traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, Simons in 46 games averaged 22 points and shot 38% from 3. And this year, Simons is averaging just 17 points and shooting 32% from 3. And he's still just 25 years old. He's getting paid $25 million this year, and then it goes up to $27 million next year. And I do think Anthony Simons is an overrated player in this league. It doesn't mean he's bad. Maybe he's just in a bad situation. Maybe it's under Chauncey Billups that he's not able to optimize his fullest offensive potential. Maybe we're going to see him get traded at this year's deadline or in this upcoming offseason. But I don't think Portland regrets this deal. I just think they wish Anthony Simons was a little bit better for them. It was kind of a shocker when it happened, but man, this contract has aged well for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They gave Lou Dort a 5-year extension worth $82.5 million, brings him to around $16.5 million per year. And in today's NBA, for one of the best perimeter defenders in this league, that's got to earn you an A grade. Now, Dort's first year on this contract extension struggled offensively. He shot 38% from the field and 33% from 3, averaged around 13.5 points per night for the 2023 Thunder. But Dort has really turned his shot around, and over the last year and a half, he has looked like one of the best 3-and-D wings in the NBA. Since the start of the 2023 season, in 104 games, he's averaged 10.5 points, 4 rebounds, and has shot 39% from 3 on 5 attempts a night. And like I said before, in today's NBA, $16.5 million for premier defense and someone that could shoot over 35% from 3 on high volume is super valuable. In the modern era, I don't think OKC regrets this decision whatsoever. I am very interested to see what Lou Dort's contract looks like next. Also crazy, Lou Dort has never been on an all-defensive team. Next up, we got Zach LaVine signing with the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to be giving this one a C-. Zach LaVine signed a 5-year deal worth $215 million, around $7 million less per year annually than Bradley Beal got from the Washington Wizards. Same amount of years, but Zach LaVine did not get that dreaded no-trade clause that Bradley Beal got. And you may think I'm being just too nice to Zach LaVine, but in the first year off that contract extension in 2023, Zach LaVine was great. He played 77 games. He averaged 25 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4 assists a night. He shot 48% from the field, 37% from 3, and 85% from the line. There was always going to be some issues with Zach LaVine defensively, and obviously that 2023 Bulls team was disappointing. The contract really took a hit last year where Zach LaVine only appeared in 25 games. The Bulls were not able to trade him at the deadline or in the offseason. They apparently offered Zach LaVine to the Warriors for basically just salary matching coming back, and the Warriors wanted nothing to do with Zach LaVine's contract. And I feel like LaVine is still a good offensive player, but if the Bulls had any type of offer on the table, they would have traded him by now. So that's what's making this a lower grade at a C- and not higher, because LaVine is still a good offensive player in this league. But looking back on it, it's a clear overpay, and maybe Chicago would just rather have traded him before he ended up being a free agent, or maybe pulled the trigger on a trade after the 2023 season. James Harden signed with the Philadelphia 76ers on a 2-year deal worth $68 million. There was obviously a player option involved in this trade. I'm going to give this grade a B. I actually think Harden's time in Philly wasn't as bad as we may look back on it as. And the second year of this 2-year contract was a player option, and Harden opted in back in the 2023 offseason, but expected to get traded, and Daryl Morey said, no, we're not doing that. They eventually traded James Harden in the first part of the 2024 NBA season to the Clippers, so they actually got a decent return for Harden. Not any great players coming back in this trade, but they got some nice draft capital down the line. But Harden was a productive player for Philly in that 2023 season. He averaged 21 points. He led the NBA in assists with 10.7 a night. He shot 38% from 3. When Joel Embiid was banged up in the playoffs, especially in that game 1 of round 2 against Boston, James Harden was able to carry that load offensively. Now, he was still inconsistent on both ends of the floor, but that team was up 3-2 against Boston in round number 2, and since that season, they haven't come close to winning a round 2 series. I know it was just 1 year, but they did lose to the Knicks in round 1 of the playoffs last year. They ended up using that Harden salary they traded off to get Paul George in free agency, so it did work out for Philly in the long run, but this wasn't a massive deal for Harden. He was still a productive player for Philadelphia in 2023, and they were able to trade him at the start of the 2024 season, so I'm going to give this a B. I'm going to hand out another D here. Honestly, you can let me know if it should be an F, and it's going to be Yusuf Nurkic on a 4-year deal worth $70 million to the Portland Trailblazers. Nurkic only spent 1 year in Portland after this deal. He was actually a productive player for them that season. He averaged around 13 points, 9 rebounds a night, shot 51% from the field and 36% from three across 52 games. He got traded for DeAndre Ayton in that 2023 offseason, and Phoenix also traded away Toumani Camara with DeAndre Ayton to get Jusuf Nurkic, and Jusuf Nurkic has just been kind of abysmal for the Phoenix Suns over the last year and a half. He's played 94 games for the Suns. He's averaged 10.5 points, 10.8 rebounds. He shot 49% from the field, 25% from three, 64% from the free throw line. Not a good rim protector for this team. We saw that on display against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the playoffs last year. I'm sure if he's going to be starting at the 5 spot for the Suns this go around in the playoffs, it's going to be the same result. And having to pay $18 million for Nurkic this year and then $19 million for Nurkic next year definitely makes this a negative contract in the league. Next up, I'm going to hand out my first F, and it's going to be PJ Tucker signing a 3-year deal worth $33 million with the Philadelphia 76ers. PJ Tucker was coming off a 2022 season where he was a good player for the Miami Heat. He actually helped the Heat knock out the Philadelphia 76ers in round 2 of those 2022 playoffs. Daryl Morey, the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers, had a pre-existing relationship with PJ Tucker back to their time with the Houston Rockets when Morey was the GM over there. And PJ Tucker played in 75 games for the 76ers in that 2023 season, where he averaged 3.5 points, 3.9 rebounds. He did shoot 39% from three, but this was his age 37 season, and we could definitely see the fall off there. And he still had 2 more years of guaranteed money at $11 million per year, because the third year of that 3-year contract was a player option. He was luckily included in that James Harden trade to make the financials work, so it ended up being the Clippers' problem, and he's just been a negative asset for the Clippers over the last year and a half. Last year, he appeared in 28 games for the Clippers. He wanted to get traded in the offseason. The only problem is nobody wants PJ Tucker's $11 million. What makes it a little bit easier to trade now, he's a free agent at the end of the year, but he's yet to play for the Clippers this year, and it turned out to be arguably the worst contract that wasn't on max level money of the 2022 free agency class. Next up, we're going to talk about Colin Sexton signing a 4-year deal worth $70 million, around $17.7 million a year. This was technically signed by the Utah Jazz, but it was also lumped into the Donovan Mitchell trade, which sent him to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going to give this an A. $17 million for somebody that's been able to put up 17 points, 4 assists, and shoot 49% from the field, 39% from three, and 85% from the line in over 150 games for Utah has been a great value signing for them. And he wasn't even the main piece looking back on it in that Donovan Mitchell trade. That was Lauri Markkanen, and Sexton has been a great number 2. He's also been an elite 3-point shooter once again this year, shooting 42% from 3 on 4 attempts a night. And it's looking like if Utah decides to trade Colin Sexton at this year's deadline, they can get a really good return from him. So they were able to get 2.5 really productive years for $17 million a season, and then be able to probably get some good assets in return if they inevitably trade Colin Sexton. I think that's a pretty deserving A. Next up, I want to rattle off 3 A+, not on the scale of Jalen Brunson's A+, because that was borderline max level money. These were under the radar signings, and these guys are more considered role players at the time when they signed these contracts, and they were some of the best deals of this free agency class. The first one we're going to talk about is Malik Monk leaving the LA Lakers to sign with the Sacramento Kings on a 2-year deal worth $19 million. And Monk was one of the best players to come off the bench in those 2 years with the Sacramento Kings. He actually started 0 games in those 2 years, playing in 149 games, but he averaged around 14.5 points, 4 assists a night, shot 85% from the free throw line, shot around 35% from 3, and 44% from the line, and was just a great shot creator and playmaker off the bench for the Sacramento Kings. And just for $9 million a year for somebody that was going to be in 6 Man of the Year conversations, definitely makes this an A+. And then he obviously just got a new deal from Sacramento last offseason. Another under the radar signing that happened at this time was the New York Knicks signing Isaiah Hartenstein from the LA Clippers on a 2-year deal worth $16 million total, $8 million a year to be the backup center to Mitchell Robinson. And this is definitely going to be an A+ grade because Isaiah Hartenstein was so valuable for the Knicks in the regular season and in the playoffs as their backup center. He averaged around 6 points, 7.5 rebounds, and shot 59% from the field throughout the regular season for the Knicks in those 2 years, but like I said, was just an impactful player in the playoffs, especially against the Philadelphia 76ers of round 1 of the 2024 playoffs, where Mitchell Robinson got hurt. Hartenstein averaged 10 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 3 assists, and made his presence felt on both ends of the floor. And when the Knicks gave him that 2-year deal, they probably wished giving him a 3-year deal in hindsight. Because of the CBA rules, the Knicks could only have afforded Hartenstein at a certain amount of money in last year's free agency class in 2024, and the Thunder were able to give him more money, which they ended up doing, and we're just seeing currently how good Isaiah Hartenstein is as a player in this league. And the last A+ of role player signings, it was just a 1-year deal. Bruce Brown leaving the Brooklyn Nets to go to the Denver Nuggets. And if you remember, Bruce Brown was one of the most impactful players outside of the top guys on that 2023 championship Denver Nuggets squad. And Denver found a diamond in the rough because in that 2023 season, Bruce Brown averaged 11.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 3.5 assists off the bench. He shot 48% from the field, 35% from three. He actually did end up starting 31 games for the Denver Nuggets, and in the playoffs was a beast for them. 11 points in round 1 against Minnesota, 13 points in round 2 against Phoenix, 12 points in round 3 against the Lakers, and averaged 11 points and 4.5 rebounds in the NBA Finals in 27 minutes a night against the Miami Heat. He was so good that Indiana gave him a 2-year deal worth $45 million in the 2023 offseason, and Toronto, after he got traded to the Raptors in the Pascal Siakam trade, picked up the team option because they still thought they could trade him, making $23 million a year. And the last one we're going to talk about is John Wall, just signing a 2-year deal with the LA Clippers. This was just kind of a disaster for LA. I'm going to give it a D. It was John Wall's last year in the NBA, and what we thought he could maybe pull out from his earlier Wizards days were just long behind him. In 34 games after sitting out of the 2022 season, John Wall in 2023 averaged 11.5 points, 5 assists, shot 40% from the field, 30% from three, and 68% from the line. And injuries pretty much derailed John Wall's career, and it didn't work out in one last go of things in Los Angeles. So that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, I would really appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you are not already for more content like this all NBA season long. And if you're still watching at this point, I really appreciate you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.